I'm Shaun Haney, and this is RealAg on the Weekend. Let's get real and get connected with the week that was in Canadian agriculture. RealAg on the Weekend starts now. Welcome to RealAg on the Weekend here on 980 CGME and 650 CKOM. It is great to be with you here this afternoon on the program. Thanks a lot for joining us. Hope you had yourself a great week. I had a very busy one. I'm your host, Shaun Haney of RealAgriculture.com and the RealAg Radio podcast. It is great to be with you here. Yeah, I had a great week this week. And I was able to go to the Canadian Beef Industry Conference in Calgary, which was great to see lots of fans and people that make sure they check out RealAgriculture.com on a regular basis, and was able to also be on the stage, which was really fantastic as well. And if you missed that, go to the RealAg Radio podcast, and you can download. It was from Wednesday. We focused all on adversity in the beef industry. We had a producer panel, which was great, and really just talked about how adversity, in some ways, it's those experiences that just lead to better leadership going forward. And there's no shortage of adversity in our industry. And, of course, drought being one that has really, really concerned the cattle industry in Western Canada, in particular in Saskatchewan as well. Well, today on the program, speaking of CBIC, the Canadian Beef Industry Conference, we're going to hear from Ryder Lee. He is General Manager at the Canadian Cattle Association. We're also going to hear from Rick Rutherford. He's a farmer from Manitoba, and he is doing some real-life, real-scale farm research in Manitoba on his 6,000-acre farm. So Kelvin Hepner had a chance to catch up with him. Also, we're going to hear a little bit of a piece of a new series that is launched at RealAgriculture.com. It's called Profitable Practices. It is brought to you by Farm Credit Canada and RBC Royal Bank. It's where we focus on sustainability from the perspective of return on investment. And we did an episode, I don't know what number we're at now. We've done a handful of them. And the episode we released this week is all about intercropping. That's right, mixing crops, putting them together in the same field, not monocropping. We are talking about intercropping. And we talked to one of the farmers that has really been a leader in this area in Western Canada is Colin Rosengren of Midale, Saskatchewan. So he will be, we're going to play a piece of that discussion here today on the program. If you have any feedback on today's show, we'd love to hear from you. Send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. You can also find us across all the different social media platforms, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Threads. Yeah, they're all there. We are Real Agriculture on all of them. Or you can call the RealAg feedback line. The number is 855-776-6147. Also, another one of the highlights of this week was we did the Farmer Rapid Fire on the RealAg Radio podcast on Thursday and talked to Rob Stone of Davidson, Saskatchewan. He actually got a visit from the Agriculture Minister, Lawrence McCauley. Now, Mr. McCauley visited Rob's farm. Rob really has been a big proponent of trying to reach out to politicians of all political stripes to get them to visit his farm on the ground in Davidson and see what some of the issues are and where the opportunities lie as well. It's not all negative. And Minister McCauley took Rob up on that offer. And on the RealAg Radio podcast on Thursday, here's what Rob had to say about that visit.
One of the things that I heard him say was that if we limit the way that people can produce, that's going to limit your economic opportunities, and that's just not good.
You know, so that's Rob Stone talking about his visit with Federal Ag Minister Lawrence McCauley. You know, I think this is where the face-to-face is so critical, especially when we're trying to convince somebody, show somebody something in terms of how it is through our lens. Doing it face-to-face on the ground is so important. It is so critical. And I remember the Calgary Stampede 2 years ago. I'm emceeing the Calgary Stampede agriculture reception, and Minister Bobo is there. And same thing, I made a big point about the fact that it is great to see politicians on the ground. You got to get out. Senator Black has talked about this a lot. You got to get out and see stuff with your own eyes. You can look at photos, you can do Zoom calls, but you got to get out, and especially with the diversity in our industry. Okay? That's another key component of all this. Cody Blois, who is the chair of the House Ag Committee, he's talked about it. He has been out to Western Canada and other parts of Canada to see agriculture as well. And you can't look at it just through your lens. So if you're a politician from Saskatchewan, you just can't think of everything through the Saskatchewan lens. You got to get out and see it across the country. No different than if you're a politician from Quebec or the Maritimes or British Columbia. It can look a lot different. And over a reasonably small geography. You drive, from Lethbridge, Alberta, drive 3.5 hours to Kimberley, where there also is agriculture. Those two things look different. They are different, but they also look different, and it's not until you're on the ground, seeing it with your own eyes, that you can really, really identify with that. Okay? And especially as we're developing policies, national policies, especially around the environment file, you have to take into account the regional differences. And that continues to be the problem. We don't do that. When we don't take into account the regional differences, we've got bad policy. And so good on Mr. McCauley for getting out and seeing some of the sites and visiting farms directly himself to see with his own eyes. So good on him for doing that here during the summer months. Okay, let's take a break. We've got more of Real Ag on the weekend coming up here on 650 CKOM and 980 CJB.
There's a reason we call it the Corn School. Videos on everything from planter setup, weed control, field trial results, yield strategies, and so much more. The Corn School on RealAgriculture.com has the information and advice you need to help you succeed. Brought to you by Pride Seeds and BASF, Corn School episodes are available at cornschool.com, from RealAgriculture.com, or as a podcast from your favorite streaming service. Download the latest podcast today.
If you're involved in the agriculture industry, it's important to stay informed on all the latest issues affecting your business. At RealAgriculture.com, we offer fast, reliable news, information, and insights to help you keep on top of all of the latest in Canadian agriculture. Visit RealAgriculture.com and sign up for our free daily newsletter covering everything from news, agronomy, animal agriculture, and much more. Visit RealAgriculture.com/subscribe today.
This week at the Canadian Beef Industry Conference, I had a chance to catch up with Canadian Cattle Association General Manager Ryder Lee. And we talked about some of the things that are on the plate right now of CCA and its members. And let's hear that conversation. Okay, great turnout here for the conference.
It really is, I think I heard something around 600, and that was the goal. And so you never know with weather and harvest and challenges or whatnot who's going to show up, but I think it's the content that brings people out, and then just the who's who. It's a networking great spot to be.
Yeah, seen a lot of listeners, a lot of friends, people I've known for a long time. So it's a great spot, and it's a great opportunity in August, the dog days of summer, to get together and talk about all things cattle and beef. So from your perspective at CCA, what are the big files being worked on right now? There's a lot of different things to ask you about. From your perspective as general manager at CCA, what is top of mind for you right now?
Well, there's so many oars in the water, you'd say, kind of thing. But right now, the imminent piece is the drought and disaster response, and that spreads over several provinces. And it's a little bit same in some of them, and it's a little bit different. So time is so much of the essence with that, with getting governments engaged, measuring, deciding, designing, and rolling out, so people even know what's the what. So that's the number one. And then, but there's so many other things that are longer battles, and our trade and market access is a big one, with a couple of bills or things that might become bills coming to Parliament this fall. We're right active on that and trying to do things with tours in the summer, interacting with senators. We had a senator here yesterday. She was presenting, but also, taking the opportunity to talk about 282 and trade with the UK, and all of that trade business is probably more future looking. But the stuff that happens right now it's very important. And then, we have meetings with the U.S. and Mexican producers that are here, and just trying to make sure that on the animal health side of things, we're getting things done here, there, and elsewhere to prepare for or to be able to recover from something that might happen in the future.
Let's focus on the UK thing for a second. It has to be a little bit awkward for CCA, and the fact that usually you're proponents of trade deals. Like, let's get the trade deal done. This is important. We got to export beef. Let's make her happen. This is an example, though, where we kind of learned from the CETA agreement that just because you have a trade deal doesn't mean that you're getting the market access. Talk about why CCA has been so loud in making sure that politicians are aware that maybe the UK shouldn't be brought into the CPTPP.
Yeah, there's a couple things there. One is what is the potential? And, with the EU, there's all those, it's a high value market, so we wanted to capture that potential, and then the work is in realizing it. But with this one, what we have with the CPTPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, is several countries in there that have shown really good market access agreement. It's science-based. It trusts a system of the exporter. If it's good enough for Canadians, then we're importing it. And we've seen excellent growth into Japan and Vietnam. So these huge countries, if we let the UK in under these parameters, making political decisions about production, and we don't necessarily trust all the things you approve in Canada. We're gonna decide in our Parliament every time. That precedent is terrible, not only for our current partners in TPP, but any other country that wants in. So that ability for the bad part of the deal to be spread around even many more countries makes it even more important too.
If they can do it, we can do it, kind of thing. Are you starting to work on the file, getting ready for the NAFTA renegotiation? Has that at all come across the desk, or prep work begun on that when it does happen in 2026?
Sort of. I mean, that's part of the thing with C-282. And if we tie our negotiators and say you can never talk about these aspects of agriculture when our biggest trading partner comes to renegotiate our free trade agreement, that's going to have a definite impact on that whole conversation. So that's a big part of why that's bad legislation, and we're working so hard to head that off. So yeah, I'd say the foundation pieces of the work toward that are happening, but I wouldn't say it's with that one we've got what we want, and we want to preserve it. So it's less hard to be prepared.
What is the push for that legislation to basically say that in the future all supply management, there's no further access for supply management commodities? Obviously, dairy is the big leader there. We can never negotiate away any market access again. What's the push here? Is it just pure votes and politics when it comes down to trying to secure votes in Ontario and Quebec? Is that the reality of it?
You got to climb into somebody's head to figure that one out. And when you look at Bloc versus Liberal versus Conservatives, I think you can find some political stories there. But it's worse. It's not even you can't give any access. It's you can't talk about it, effectively. And so generally our governments have went into these negotiations with that viewpoint that we're not giving up access on this. And they can continue to do that, and they've done that well. And where they haven't, they've been very generous in compensation. So that's a different scenario than your negotiating partner already knowing that you're not going to talk about this. And that's the hands tied piece of this. That's just bad management of your trade files.
Ryder, one of the things that's bothering me, and a lot of this is drought related, there's factors out that are really pushing people to make a certain decision. It's supply. Canada's inability to rebuild the herd, so to speak. I think it's concerning. It's made Canada essentially a feeder cattle importer. We've been expanding feeding capacity without expanding supply. We're in that bind now. What do we do about this? Is there an easy solution besides, hey, Mother Nature, start doing your part and make it rain?
Well, I don't think that's an easy solution either, but but really, we're beholden to what falls from the sky, and those concerns are exactly mine as well. You need to be able to keep that feeding capacity going, because, by the way, that keeps the meat plants open, and we need those bidders. We know what we have. If we lose bidders, we struggle to have price discovery. We struggle to have competition. So, yeah, that continues to be the worry, because on the flip side, we've got the markets, we've got the demand. Dennis likes to say if we had 1 million more cattle, we've got the buyers. Yeah. When we're in other countries now, they're not asking us about price, they're asking us about supply. So it's been good that we've been able to import feeders to keep our activity going here on this side of the border, to keep our feeders feeding and our packers packing. Another good reason to have the open border that we have with the U.S. and feed flows the same way. We've been importing a lot of feed as well, and that's what we've got to do, because the groceries you need to get your cows through the winter, that's pretty hard to replace, and we need that to smarten up right away.
And finally, I wanted to ask you about where are we at with a national program for business risk management for the cattle sector. Of course, when we look at the cropping sector, risk management programs, they're a little bit more prolific and a little bit more available. We've got areas of the country that have been really, really calling out, saying, hey, we need this kind of programming. Where are we at with that?
A little bit of progress out of Fredericton, the FedProv ministers' meetings, talking about extending price insurance into the Maritimes, and price insurance is part of it, and we'd really like to see that across the country, and so that's some momentum. We're also working with the feds and the provincial governments as well on better forage insurance, exploring maybe there's something better than agri-stability, and is there a revenue insurance program or something that can do that? So that work's going on. It's behind the scenes, and then you gotta be able to design something that somebody will fund, but also that somebody will participate in, and that also works for our trade commitments and the like, and so there's a lot that goes into that, but nobody's sitting still saying, what we've got is good enough, stop talking about it. There's the duck is swimming, they don't seem like they're moving very much, but we're working on it.
Well, Ryder, it's great to see you. Really appreciate you are super busy, so I appreciate you taking the time to join us here. All the best to you, and congratulations on a great Canadian beef industry conference.
Well, I can't take credit for that. There's a great team puts it together, so and you being here is part of that. Thanks for joining us and being on stage as well.
I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Take care.
That was Ryder Lee, General Manager with CCA. Ryder makes some very good points about this Bill 282. The more you learn about it, the more you talk to people about it, it's just a big case of why. And the uncomfortable part is the why. It's about the politics of it and planting a flag in the ground in terms of do you or do you not support supply management in the country. And the concern is here, the statement that's being made, and if in future trade negotiations, supply management is off the table, it does give the upper hand to the other opposing side that you were negotiating with, because now they have the leverage in terms of what you will, or in this case, can't do. So just sort of bizarre. We'll see what happens in the fall session when the House returns, and if this sort of Calvin Hepner on Real Agriculture's team, he has a theory that this sort of gets slow played, ragging the puck, so to speak. And maybe some sober second thoughts develop is what his thought is on Bill C-282. Okay, let's take a break. We've got more coming up here on Real Ag on the Weekend. You're listening to 650 CKOM and 980 CGME.
Canola is more than just a pretty face in the prairie landscape. It's a big business, both here and around the world, that requires you to be informed and up to date on everything it takes to grow a successful crop. The Canola School on RealAgriculture.com has an expert library of video resources covering markets, agronomy, and more to help you grow a healthy and profitable canola crop. Visit canolaschool.com today. Brought to you by BASF Canada and Invigor Hybrid Canola.
The next generation is the future of agriculture, but how do we launch from one role to leading? From succession planning and family dynamics to understanding finances and making the tough calls to discovering paths others have taken all through agriculture, the Successors Podcast covers it all. Tune in with me, your host, Kara Oosterhuis, simply by searching The Successors on your favorite podcast platform, or you can find it by visiting www.realagriculture.com.
Whether you're seeding, harvesting, or anything in between, the Wheat School on RealAgriculture.com has you covered. Timely agronomic information from industry experts available online anytime. Give your wheat crop a good start and a great finish with the Wheat School on RealAgriculture.com. Brought to you by C&M Seeds, Syngenta Canada, and the Alberta Wheat and Barley Commission.
A lot of times in agriculture we do research and it's on a really small scale. And when we're testing products and concepts, practices, we tend to do initial judging of things based on some pretty small results. And we all know this. Something that happens in a plot, a small plot, it can be an indication of things that would happen on a larger scale, but not all the time. Many times not. Like that's the reality, and so we also need what we call like field scale trialing, and we've seen a huge cutback in some of the provincial government budgets when it comes to this kind of activity, for sure. And so some farmers have taken this kind of work on themselves, and good on them. And one of those farmers is Manitoba-based Rick Rutherford, and RealAgriculture.com's Kelvin Hepner had a chance to catch up with Rick on his farm this week. Here's the conversation.
All right, for Real Agriculture, I'm Kelvin Hepner, and pleased to be joined now by Rick Rutherford, farmer here just outside of Gros Isle, Manitoba, northwest of Winnipeg. And Rick, your farm is host to the Emily project. It's known as Innovation Farms. Can you fill us in on what this means? I think people are seeing it happen, but are trying to, at least I know I'm trying to understand what the project is all about here.
Actually, the Emily Group has been working on our farm for 3 years. They had the vision to, I guess, for not a better term, they had a vision of a smart farm in Manitoba. Mm-hmm. And they liked their term was the Innovation Farm. So we had discussed a bit about it, and they had the vision that they were going to have this farm, and if they had 1,500 acres where they could work on new projects that were coming down it. And after the discussion, we kind of led into the way, and our team here thought that really what we really needed was, for all the new technologies that were coming out, we wanted it to be able to be proven on a commercial basis. So that's why the term comes from them. One of their buzzwords was, the 5,500 or 6,000 acre innovation farm. Well, it was really our idea was to push it there. If the thing can't work on a commercial farm, why are we beating ourselves down that path? So the Emily model is to take new innovation technologies, do it on a smaller scale, and if we like the idea and thought there could be some sustainability in it, we'd move it to the large bases and the large farm. And with the technology we have here, we can prove or truth a lot of the technologies that are coming down the pipe.
Do you have an idea of how many different companies or partners or technologies are currently being examined here?
It depends at what level. If you look at what the Emily Group is doing on their, I guess you say they're bringing the new technologies, and a lot of it, Emily is different from other smart farms. They're actually an accelerator. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the model, it's different from Moles. They are having new technology, people bringing stuff to them. And a lot of this stuff, some of it we can't even talk about it because it's in proprietary type of things, but they're looking at some of this technology that it's coming down to it. And I think they're part of the Pan-Pacific team, and I think one of the goals there is not to duplicate so much stuff. If there's application, sure, it looks good, but like Emily itself even has a capital enablement fund. So for startups that they look at it has some bases in it, they want to be able to help them with funding to bring it to the next level. But then, as I say, it works through it, and we've tested stuff with our technology years in, year out. To answer the question, we're actually doing things on our own that's not even in within Emily, and that's because of our seed background. background, we look at new seed varieties, we look at crop types. Like one we're playing with on the farm basis this year is winter camelina, where the Emily group is probably going to dovetail on it because they see the innovation behind it. So a lot of this stuff, we actually bring ideas together to somewhat look at it, that some stuff we will be doing here and some stuff that the Emily group will be doing, and we talk about it and then say, like, where are we going to go to? And as I say, this is the first year we've been on a more of a broader scale, so we'll look at ideas and bring through it, but really the end goal is to bring products to the marketplace that's got sustainability and adds value to farms, no matter what it is, if it's nutrient management or what have you. And I think that's our goal, is even our seed business that we run, we've always said that our success is driven by our customer success. And if we can't give them success things, that's not really what we're interested in.
Yeah. If I put my farmer hat on, though, Rick, I think I like it if things are simple on the farm, if I don't have too many salespeople visiting, I don't have too many outsiders on the farm, and I just like to get my work done and stuff like that. What's your response to that type of perspective that maybe other farmers share? And you obviously have a different point of view on that.
Well, we're looking for the next best thing that's going to be sustainable on our farm. And as running our retail business, if we have ideas that we can bring to our customers, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for a leg up on our competition, no different than any other agribusiness. So that's one of our first initial things on it. And we have a term we refer to, if we look at a new technology, does it fit the criteria, easy button? So we're talking to an easy button farmer here, likes easy things. So reality is how do we move, or how do we help the guys with some of this technology? Is it too complicated to check the easy button theme? And we don't begrudge that. It's just a natural thing that we deal with. So, and that's part of what we debunk, is if it's low-hanging fruit and our easy button farmers like it, that's another thing it checks as our box too. And hopefully that we can save some pain and issue with some of the people, with some of the new technologies that are coming up, that we can just say, yeah, we don't see that there's any long-term benefit to that, and we can help our customer with that. I think that's what we're looking at.
Yeah, comes back to that gap between what's happening in the research world and what's happening in the practical, in the field world.
And that's our goal, the Innovation Farm, is trying to meld that together a bit. And it'll be interesting as we go on here. One of the things, as we were not negotiating but talking about it, as we've said, is some of the stuff that you're bringing to the table, and some of it, there's a ton of government investment in it, we think may not be practical, or it has no commercial viability. And one of the things that we kind of maintain so far, we'll see how it goes, that we could call some of this stuff out. And some of this stuff has got a lot of government funding, and if it's got no commercial really viability or sustainability, why is this Smart Barn or Innovation Farm would we want to promote it?
Yeah.
So it's going to be an interesting as we go forward, because as you know, there's a ton of products on the biological side that's coming down the type. And as I say, we've got two folders in our office. One of it's the snake oil one, and the one at work, and the one of the snake oil is pretty thick right now. But again, that's what we hope to do, is try to debunk some of this stuff for our customers.
All right. Both in terms of crop inputs like that, but also machinery and tech and all kinds of things.
That. Exactly. And reality is we do use our equipment to truth a lot of stuff. Is it complicated? The technology is there, so we tell a lot of our customers, or try to promote our customers, yes, it's there, and this is what you can get out of it. And I think as we move forward, we see a lot of things starting to happen, even in the carbon market. If you look at carbon offsets, have been the big buzz for years and years. We don't think they're sustainable. But if we can get paid for the insets or the things that we put into our land in an environmental friendly way, that's where it's moving to, and that's where this technology really comes into it. We have full data set in all our acres that we farm for 10 years, and they're starting to see quite a value in that. We haven't shared it in the past very liberally, but for research purposes, we've actually shared it, because in a lot of cases it's used blindly, but in the end of the day there is benefit in that data. And I think that's where you'll see technology and the move from people that have the technology from the easy side more into it. Because let's be honest here, if you were to receive 75 cents a bushel for every bushel of grain that you sold on your farm because you can prove what you put into your crop, I think it would change the look at it, because you start taking that, it could be $50 or $60 an acre over thousands of acres. Really, this stuff really starts playing at home, and I think that's what you will see, or that's one of our visions, as we say, is how it's going to develop over the future, is on the inset side of things.
Yeah, cool. It's fascinating, and I know we could talk about this stuff for a long time, Rick, but I did see your combine, one of your combines head down the road before, so...
That was a neighbor.
Oh, it was a neighbor? Oh, I thought it was one of yours.
Well, it was funny, actually, because the neighbor pulled in here with his pickup, and the guys jumped out of it to use our moisture tester. So I guess we've already harvested a bunch of crop here already. So, and it's interesting here. The moisture is so variable. Mm-hmm. Right at our home farm here, we've said 6.5 inches. Most of our combining has been done at a farm north of here. It's only 3 miles, and it only received 3 inches. Mm-hmm. So there's a wide variety of crop conditions even in our backyard here. But we look at our canola, soybeans, and corn is more in the wetter area here, and a lot of it looks fairly sharp. So that's our crop report, that the thunderstorm lottery is what you got.
Exactly. No. Thank you, though, for your time today, Rick, and thanks for the opportunity to visit your farm today.
That was RealAgriculture.com's Kelvin Hepner chatting with Manitoba-based farmer Rick Rutherford. We got to take a break. We've got more of RealAg on the weekend coming up here on 980 CGME and 650 CKOM.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Smith of RealAgriculture.com. Join me Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern for The Agronomists, Canada's only live, interactive, agronomy-based show. Each week, we answer your most pressing questions with a rotating panel of agronomists, researchers, and extension staff from across Canada. Join me Monday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn, or head to realagriculture.com/live at 8 p.m. Eastern.
Hi, I'm Bernard Tobin, host of the Soybean School on RealAgriculture.com. Throughout the year, on the Soybean School, we'll bring you timely agronomic video content from planting to harvest, from the latest agronomic research to the latest in production technology. Check out our massive video library on YouTube, RealAgriculture.com, or download the audio podcast versions wherever you get your podcasts. The Soybean School is brought to you by Pride Seeds, BASF, and Syngenta Canada.
In the prior segment, we heard all about the future of farm research and different ways to make it happen. There with Rick Rutherford, farmer from Manitoba. Now, there also are farmers that are sort of pushing the bleeding edge. Maybe is the best way to put it in terms of challenging some of our practices. And one of those practices that some farmers do question is, why are we so locked into only planting one crop in one field? Why are we not doing something like intercropping? And this is something that's not very common, but there are producers that are having some success with it. Now, there are challenges, but there is some success out there. And in a recent Profitable Practices episode, which is a series you can find at realagriculture.com, sponsored by Farm Credit Canada and RBC Royal Bank, we focus on sustainable practices with ROI, with an attention on return on investment. It's not just about ideology. It is also about making money. And we chatted with Colin Rosengren. He's a farmer from Midale, Saskatchewan. I visited his farm, and we were out in a field of, it was canola and lentils, if I remember correctly. And here's the conversation we had from the episode of Profitable Practices. What is intercropping?
Well, I guess that'd be growing 2 or more crops in the same field. I usually consider it as both or all the crops for cash purposes for harvest to consider it intercropping.
So I got to ask, it's unique. There are people that are doing it. How did you get started intercropping?
I guess the big thing was kind of an economic driver. Back in 2004, the prices were quite low. Canola $6, peas less than $4. Just trying to figure out a way of getting extra yield and lower input costs at the same time. And then a lot of it was observations that we'd seen anytime we see volunteer crops coming in another crop. It always did a lot better. Head of volunteer durum in a barley field, for example, and the head will be full 8-10 row, the best head of durum you'll ever see. So just recognizing that there was an opportunity for another crop to succeed within a monoculture situation let us think maybe we should plan that and put some more of something else in there.
It's a little bit of a mind bender. We're used to, we'll call it monocropping. This is polycropping, I guess we should call it. What do you think it is that creates this 1 + 1 = 3 sort of scenario?
Well, I kind of often end up flipping that around of what makes us think we should grow just one. If we go out there to any natural system, we'll never find just one plant growing, because there's always opportunity of time and space and resources that's more diverse and spread out. And so to try and design a single crop to use everything at that same time doesn't match the supply and demand curve, I guess. So anything we can do to flatten out that demand curve of our crop by spreading out multiple crops is going to help us to match the supply better.
Now, a lot of people, I think, jump to harvest. Okay, but I want to back it up here, because actually the seeding to me actually is a little bit even more interesting and maybe a little bit more complicated. Talk about what happens at seeding time in order to end up with what we see here is multiple crops in the same field.
Well, we've adapted that practice over the years as well, but it's not that it's not complicated or require major stuff. Like I said, we did it just about 20 years ago in 2004, and so we did it then with flexi-coil drill with 2 carts. We had a toe between and a toe behind, and so we had 4 compartments, and away we went. It doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. Currently we use a seed tender so that we can have 5 separations out to the drill. And we still operate, the one drill has a toe between and toe behind cart, giving us 6 compartments. So we've got capability of metering 6 products, and the other drill we modified so that it has 5 metering tanks on it, on the Seed Hawk. So it's just multiple compartments and just one more layer, one more product. It doesn't really add any total volume. So
you're even taking this to another level, and you're doing variable rate seeding throughout the field. That's even more of a complexity added on here. Talk about the why of doing that.
Well, yeah, I guess we've always handled our products separately. So we always did our fertilizer products separate too, and handle our nitrogen separate from phosphorus, separate from sulfur. And the reason being because we recognize the same area of the field doesn't need more of all of them. You have to kind of vary those separately if you're going to do a variable rate management, because each site of the field needs different amounts of each. It's similar, I guess, some of the observations we had, like this crop, for example, is pea, canola, lentil that we do in a variable rate manner. And so those observations would be, if you grow lentils and it's a wet year, for example, people can lose 30% of their lentil crop in the low area. And for us, those low spots are typically our highest yielding areas. And yet with lentils, you might lose them and it might be flipped around. So it starts to ask the question, why are we seeding lentils in the low spot when, if it was a pea crop, for example, that's where our best peas would be. And yet on the hilltop, the peas don't grow very well when it's that dry. They're short and they don't yield well. So it's just a matter of observing that those plants do better in different areas of the field, and let's put more of them there.
You can find the whole episode, my conversation with Colin Rosengren of Midale, by going to RealAgriculture.com. Encourage you to do that. Have you tried intercropping? I know some that have. I know a farmer that did in Alberta, and he quit after year 2. Didn't have success with it. Colin, talks about how it's not perfect, but he's done well. He feels that he's made money doing this, and it's a success. So I'd love to hear if you have tried it, if you're thinking about trying it, and is this something that could take more of the acre in parts of Western Canada? If you have any feedback on today's show, you can send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. You can also find us across all the different social media platforms, YouTube and Twitter and Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Threads. You can also call the RealAg feedback line, 855-776-6147. Hope everybody has themselves a great rest of your weekend. Thanks for joining us. Make sure you check out RealAgriculture.com. Thanks so much for joining us here for RealAg on the Weekend. Cheers, everybody.